Audio Jungle.
Federal Executive Council approved a memorandum by the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, which was presented by the Director General of the Budget Office on the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper for 2025 to 2027. And the memo seeks Council's approval for the medium-term expenditure framework for submission to the approval for submission to the National Assembly. And the Federal Executive Council graciously, upon listening to the Director General, Tanimu Yakubu, approved the 2025-2027 medium-term expenditure framework, which, as required by the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007. The medium-term expenditure framework started with a macroeconomic background, which acknowledged that despite challenging conditions in the global economy, Nigeria's economy has turned in the right direction, achieving a positive growth rate in 2 quarters continuously, significantly, with the growth rate of 3.19% in real terms in the second quarter of 2024. However, it acknowledged that the government will continue to tackle inflation, strengthen economic resilience, support the vulnerable, and rebuild fiscal buffers. And support to higher employment generation sectors, improve the business environment, and effective implementation of youth development and social investment programs. It also included a review of the 2024 budget implementation, where it acknowledged that a review of the implementation of the federal government 2024 budget reveals promising progress in revenue collection and expenditure management. Despite lags in prorated targets, the overall trajectory shows that fiscal efforts are on track, with key non-oil streams performing better than anticipated. Equally, it included parameters for the 2025-2027 medium-term fiscal framework, which include an oil price benchmark of $75 a barrel for 2025, oil production of 2.06 million barrels a day, as well as an exchange rate of 1,400 naira to a dollar, and GDP growth of 4.6%. It is expected that for 2025, the federal government's budget estimate is the aggregate expenditure is estimated at 47 trillion, and this includes a borrowing of 13.8 trillion, which is 3.87% of the estimated GDP, and it includes projections, especially for the first time, provisions for contribution to the development commissions that have been passed by the National Assembly or are in the process of being passed by the National Assembly. And equally, the fiscal objectives were conservative, because we want to ensure that we steady the course, much as we believe the projections will be exceeded. The budget size that was approved for presentation to the National Assembly in the MTEP is 47.9 trillion, with new borrowings of 9.22 trillion to finance the budget deficit in 2025, as well as noting that we need to sustain the market deregulation, commendable market deregulation of petroleum prices and exchange rate, and to compel the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited to lower its oil and gas production cost significantly, and even to consider the need to amend the relevant sections of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 to address the significant risk to Federation revenue. The Federal Executive Council approved the medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper, and it will be submitted to the National Assembly. This in addition to bills that are already at the National Assembly, the economic stabilization bills and tax reform bills, which we believe we will have a very, very strong growth in 2025. Thank you.
With the approval of a US dollars 2.2 billion financing program made up of access to the international capital market for some combination of a Euro bond offer and a Sukuk bond offer. Perhaps a Euro bond of about $1.7 billion and Sukuk financing of another $500 million. The actual makeup of the financing, which will be done as soon as the National Assembly has considered and seen fit to hopefully approve of the borrowing plan and the external borrowing approval is given, it will be done this year as soon as possible after approval. And the actual combination of instruments that will be raised will depend on what the advisors, the transaction advisors, the financial advisors, what they say about market conditions at the time at which we decide we want to enter the market. Of course, earlier in the year, we had shown the resilience of the Nigerian financial markets and their depth, their capacity, their increased complexity and sophistication by having a domestic issuance of dollar bonds which attracted Nigerians, investors from far and wide, as well as others. And the important point about it is that it used the Nigerian financial system, the Nigerian regulatory system, and Nigerian financial expertise and structures. And it was, apart from any other thing, it was a vote of confidence in the economic reform program of Mr. President, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Likewise, this being able to access the international capital market is also a sign of the acceptance and the support for the macroeconomic program of Mr. President and indeed his entire administration. As we know, that economic program, that economic recovery and revival program to turn around the economy is focused on macroeconomic, the macroeconomic pillars of market pricing of PMS and market pricing of foreign exchange. Those key pricings and those key situations have been achieved, particularly as of October 2, when we had once again in Nigeria local refining of petroleum products. That paved the way for the completion of the what was started in May 29, 2023, which was to correct the macroeconomic imbalances that were in the economy. So it is on the basis and the strength of the progress to date that we do have a window to access the international capital market for up to $2.2 billion in financing that is part of the Nigerian 2024 Appropriation Act as amended. Thank you. Memo that I presented to Council was for a approval for a Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund. That fund is the basis for the revival and the return of long-term mortgage financing to the Nigerian economy. The Murphy Real Estate Investment Fund is going to be, in first instance, a 250 billion naira fund that will provide low-cost, long-term mortgages to Nigerians that want to acquire houses. It will help to complete or help to fill part of the gaping 22 million unit housing deficit. Of course, it will create jobs. It will stimulate economic growth. And of course, it will also pave the way for other investors, private sector, to also come in and participate in the all-important housing construction industry with huge benefits and knock-on effects throughout the whole economy. And the concept is long-term investors have the opportunity to earn market rates of interest on investment and market returns, market price. Maybe even less, depending on market conditions. And that will be achieved by attracting long-term savers, life insurance companies, maybe pension funds within the limits of what is allowed, and other savers who want to save long-term, getting market rates. Their money will be blended with low-cost funding that the government has access to, funds that are available to the government at 1%, funds that are available for 40 years. And by blending the two, the seed funding by government on the one hand, and the funds that investors bring under a prospectus which the SEC has approved and which will now be made available to the public. That blending of funds, depending on what percentage of 1% money you merge with what percent with market-based interest rates, you will end up with affordable pricing on the mortgages. And as I've said, the tenor can be the likes of 20 years and more. And what that does is, as I said, it opens up the whole mortgage sector. It relieves Nigerians who normally will be faced with almost 30% interest rates, and they will be faced with tenors of 2, 3, 4 years within which they have to pay back. Now they will have rates closer to 10%. Now they will have tenors over 20 years. And that will be a tremendous relief, and is a promise kept by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And as I've said earlier, the multiplier effects for the economy as a whole to drive economic growth and job creation are obvious to all. So that was the second approval that was received by the Ministry of Finance today.
Projections for 2026 and 2027, which have different figures for the oil price benchmark for the 2 years. As to the budget we are submitting, I believe immediately, maybe tomorrow or latest on Monday, we are the Office of Mr. President will forward the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper to the National Assembly. And we are always confident in our relationship because Mr. President has shown tremendous respect for the National Assembly, and he has instructed all his team to ensure that we cooperate, we appreciate the National Assembly, we work hand in hand. So with the cooperation, I believe we will see an expeditious consideration. And immediately we are aware of the approval, we will finalize the budget because one, it's the medium-term expenditure framework precedes the budget preparation. And maybe I can use that to even answer Dr. Lyons. Dr. Lyons answer. Yes, we are confident because we have built up respectable relationship with the National Assembly, with the government, and we have narrowed the areas of misunderstanding. And because of that mutual respect, Mr. President is very, very transparent. He sits with the National Assembly leadership and take them through what we are proposing and how he thinks we should cooperate. And the National Assembly have appreciated that openness. And equally, the team led by the coordinating minister of the economy have been mandated not only to wait, but to engage National Assembly and answer all questions, attend to committee hearings, and I believe the National Assembly has been highly appreciative of that, to the extent that we believe we are able to respond to them as quickly as they want, as they will want, and because of that, they are able to do their legislative activity pretty much quicker within a turnaround time. So I'm confident because of those combination of those factors and the fact that the leadership and the president are working hand in hand. Larry asked review of the 2024 budget. Yes, the medium-term expenditure framework includes a review of the 2024 budget. And as you may recall, initially this year's budget was for 28.7.5 trillion. But an amendment was taken to the National Assembly for 6.2, which brought the budget to 35.6 trillion. Actual spending as of August ending was 16.98 trillion, as against the prorated spending of target of 23.37 trillion. Of this amount, 7.41 trillion was for debt service and 3.7 trillion for personnel costs, including pensions. Further, 3.65 trillion has been released for capital projects. Most of the delays for capital project release has been earlier legacy issues, in the sense that the new procedure for offload requires a lot of capacity building, and it's delayed uploads. I've answered Dr. Leon Ubale with 2 quarters of growth, first and second quarter of 2010. Are we making progress? Oh, surely we are. We believe we have turned the Mr. President's leadership, with Mr. President leadership, we have turned the bend. Our economy is on a positive trajectory. Yes, tough choices have been taken, but because of that, that is even what gives us the confidence that we have literally seen the worst in terms of those indices. Is to now begin to capitalize on the on the benefits, and we are confident our economy will continue to record higher rates of growth, including everyone, with all the measures, all the programs of government to ensure that everyone is included, provide infrastructure, and catalyze economic progress. What, I think someone asked, what if we do not get the approvals of the bills in the National Assembly? Well, we cannot prejudge the National Assembly. But what we know is the National Assembly have been very, very responsive. They understand as much as we do the challenges we are facing as a nation. They have agreed. They have, Mr. President has extended them a hand of partnership, which we believe they appreciated. And all the team members of Mr. President respect the National Assembly. The leadership of the National Assembly understand issues and understand the need to work hand in hand. We are in a challenging world economy. We have to make a difference, and of necessity, that difference includes good executive-legislative relationship. So we are confident that whenever we submit bills like the economic stabilization bills, the tax reform bills, there will be discourse, there will be engagement, but at the end of the day, the National Assembly will do the right thing.
By echoing and reaffirming what we have just heard from the Minister for Budget and Economic Planning regarding the all-important relationship with our partners in governance, the National Assembly, the legislature. Of course, the memo that I said was approved by the Federal Executive Council for the Ministry of Finance and Debt Management Office to approach the international capital market for up to $2.2 billion in financing. The approval received from FEC was the approval to lay before the National Assembly the request for approval to carry out that borrowing. So it is by no means second-guessing or even preempting the role and the work of the National Assembly. It is they that will give the approval to borrow. But a preliminary condition is that the Federal Executive Council also gets a chance to consider and give their own approval. And of course, we look forward to not just a robust discussion, but also prompt review, and it is our confidence and clearly, of course, our hope that there will be prompt not just review, but indeed approval, that our plans will be found to be acceptable as far as the National Assembly is concerned and worthy of support and indeed approval. So to the questions, in terms of the housing sector, when we look at where Nigeria is today in terms of its reform program, the key macroeconomic reforms have been achieved. We do have, as of today, market pricing of PMS. We have local refining, which is indeed investment and production and value added locally. In addition, we have market pricing of foreign exchange. And those are the two key prices, and those were the two key issues in this economy that were costing 5% of GDP, denying the majority of Nigerians, the overwhelming majority of Nigerians, the benefits of 5% of GDP, which is, of course, tens of billions of dollars. Having reversed and corrected that situation, the economy is on the right trajectory to build on that foundation, encourage investment, which will lead to increased productivity, which will grow the economy, it will create jobs, it will reduce poverty, which is the ultimate goal of Mr. President's economic policy and strategy. In the housing sector, that is a key driver of economic growth. We talked earlier about the multiplier effects that it has in terms of not just job creation, but value added all the way along the chain of starting from the materials that are sourced domestically to the labor that is added domestically to the finished product that Nigerians can now avail themselves of. And it is not a question of government entering that sector. It's a question of government being an enabler, not only to provide the ability of the industry to reach a higher level by providing financing that allows a construction activity to go on at a much higher level. It also provides Nigerians with the relief of having long-term funding at affordable rates so that they too can now provide the demand which the suppliers, the developers, the contractors, which they now provide the supply for. And so it's a critical element in driving economic activity. In terms of where will the funds come from to kickstart what we can envisage to be a construction boom that has many benefits for the consumers, for the potential house owners and house buyers. As we said, long-term funding available to the federal government from the development partners. We have concessional financing, which as a result of the types of policies that we are following, we are able to access. When I say long-term funding, as I said, development finance funding is available at 1%. It's available for up to 40 years. And that will be blended with what essentially will be private sector financing. So it's a public-private partnership. It is the private sector that will also provide long-term funding. And we all know that life insurance companies, pension funds, as well as some individuals, have a long-term perspective and the ability to put money down for not just years, but decades. And so it is that blended financing that has created this window, this opportunity for His Excellency, Mr. President, to meet what he had long promised and what he had talked about even before election. While on the campaign trail, he had talked about the need to provide Nigerians with long-term mortgages at affordable rates. And this is the promise that is now being kept. And it bodes very, very well for economic growth and for development of the housing sector, reduction of the housing deficit in particular.
Audio Jungle.